Starting off with the headlines on the front pages of the papers this morning. And main headlines, we have Edo, Obaseki wins as APC, Ize-Iyamu cries foul. The writer says Buhari, Atiku, Bode George, governors, others hail Obaseki. It was a contest between Edo people and Oshomole, Oasis. A poll massively rigged will decide on next step, APC. I'm studying situation. We'll meet with my party for action, says Ize-Iyamu. And on COVID-19 update, we have Lagos records 46 new infections as confirmed cases rise to 57,242. You can see that on page 36. And stories above, we have inflation, forex scarcity, worsen woes in manufacturing sector. Man list pain points, reverses stand on border closure. And stories beneath, we have insecurity. We're tired of excuses from service chiefs. Northeast elders lament. You can see that story on page 7. And still on page 7, CBN investigates 55 firm over forest infractions. And on page 7 still, why federal government investing massively in railways, seaport, says Amici. On page 9, Buhari, northern governors, others mount as Emir of Zauzau, Shehu Idris dies at 84. And on page 6, gunmen abduct over 40 farmers in Zamfara. Still on page 6, you have 8 burnt to death on Lagos-Ibadan Expressway auto crash. Also, we have records of the election results showing on the front page of the Vanguard newspaper. And away from Vanguard, we move straight to the Punch newspaper. And on the Punch newspaper, we have main headline, White Jubilation as Obaseki defeats Ize-Iyamu. APC alleges foul play. PDP candidate scores 300,795.55. Party says we have retired godfathers, cage lions. Also, Obaseki was busy rigging while raising false alarm, claims beating opposition party. And stories above, health workers resume as Johesu ends warning strike. You can see that on page 9. And on page 40, 78 firms bid to rehabilitate pipelines at depot, NNPC says. And on page 14, a bandit on reprisal kidnap 42 persons in Zamfara. And stories beneath, we have Kwara windstorm, one dead, other missing, 7 worshippers escaped death. You can see that story on page 9. On page 16, work on Oyo Dry Port project in progress, DG says. Also, 14-year-old girl raped to death in Ogun. You can see that story on page 4. APC PDP exchange words as police arrest Ondo armed talk. You can see that story on page 24. And that's all we have for you this morning on the newspaper headlines. We're going on a short break where we'll be joined in by our guest in the studio, and he's in the person of Mr. Dayo Akintobi, publisher of Ilupeju Today. We'll be right back after this.
The man whom God used to fight godfatherism. If forgotten, from our chief that has nothing called godfatherism again in Edo politics. The Edo people have spoken, and the Edo assembly. We cannot tie our faith in one man's hand. And that was what Edo did yesterday. So I want to thank him that he volunteered himself to be used to fight for the interests of Edo people. My dear brother, and your deputy want to say that people, even though they've done it before, the problem, they may think whether is it the person we know or not. So I want you to rise.
Alright, welcome back, and if you're just still joining, it's still Today in the News. My name is Precious Chukudi, and of course we just finished with the newspaper headlines this morning, and we're down to the newspaper analysis segment where I'll be joined in by my guest in the studio. He's in the person of Mr. Dayo Akintobi, publisher of Ilupeju Today. It's good to have you this morning.
Always a delight to be here.
Of course. Well, we saw what unveiled on the weekend, and that's after 3 months of campaigning back and forth between both opposition parties, talking back at each other. It was all over the papers, and finally a winner emerged. Would you describe the victory of Godwin Obaseki as the end of godfatherism in Edo State?
Well, this issue of godfatherism, I think, has actually been blown a bit out of proportion. I think once a governor has emerged and he's in office and is in power, that he has the instrumentalities of office behind him, and is not necessarily subject to the whims and caprices of any godfather. Granted, there are party stalwarts who want to exert undue influence, especially if they played a role in the emergence of the incumbent. But the incumbent has the wherewithal to resist, and that's what happened in this particular instance, which led to the imbroglio between Governor Obaseki and Chairman Oshomole. Now, will godfatherism forever be quelled in Edo and across the country? I don't think so. I think it is a mainstay of the political system that political players have to have mentors. They have to have those who come before them. They have to have people who advise them. They have to have people who try to sell them to the larger stakeholders within the party. What we need to do, or what the political system needs to do, is to try and curb the excesses of the quote-unquote godfathers.
Okay, speaking about curbing the excesses, how best do you think that that can actually work?
Well, for one thing, I remember one particular stake many years ago where the godfather of the incumbent made an open claim to 50% of the security vote. And he said, yeah, I am essentially the power in this state, and who secures this state if not for me? So the governor must give me 50%. And he said it openly, without fear, without shame, without compunction. He was openly articulating the fact that he's entitled to collecting this kind of money. I think the party hierarchy needs to exert greater control over the party elders and keep them in check against doing these kind of things.
Okay, so can we say that the just concluded governorship election in the state is like the most credible election we've had in recent times?
To be fair, the fears of violence and rigging and all, none of that came to pass. The security forces kept themselves neutral and played a very unbiased role. INEC itself was above board. There were no major reports of ballot snatching and intimidation by the police. Those things that characterize elections that we think are not, that make the elections not free and fair. We didn't see any signs of those yesterday. I think it was a very good development, although there's the issue of the shadow of that US and UK travel ban. Speculation is that may have put some fear into the political actors who may have wanted to disrupt the process, because the US had threatened that election riggers and those who disrupt the process will be placed on this high-profile visa ban.
So you think that that was a right move by the US government, saying that we're going to put ban on election riggers? Well,
I don't think any foreign authority should have the wherewithal to interfere in our elections. But it goes to speak to the situation in our own country, that our political players are afraid of being banned from going overseas, maybe because their loot is hidden there, maybe because the medical attention is procured from over there. So the fact that they would be that afraid, if that is what played out here, that they'd be that afraid of a visa ban, I want us to get to the point where Nigeria is so attractive to us that we don't care about other countries. We don't care about going to other countries. We love our country. We want to do everything here. So that such a threat would be meaningless to us in the future.
All right. The APC, through the chairman of the Edo APC media campaign, that's Mr. John Mayaki, was saying that the party has rejected the result and citing alleged strong arm tactics in the process. What are your thoughts on these strong arm tactics?
I didn't see any evidence of any, but we have sore losers in this climate, and we don't accept defeat easily. I think President Goodluck Jonathan is probably the only man in the history of this country who has not contested his loss, and that's why he's been hailed as a statesman. Every other person who loses, even if the evidence is plain, from every indication we saw yesterday, the will of the people of Edo State prevailed. So for anybody to now come and say that, oh, there was irregularities, there was this, there was that, we're going to look at it, we're going to challenge it, that's par for the course in this political dispensation, this political culture. We don't accept defeat easily, and that's not a good thing.
All right, looking at the APC party, the Edo State was one of, the state they were hoping to win. Do you think that, the outcome of this whole election has some insight into the future of the party?
After the election of yesterday, APC still has majority of the states. I think out of 36, APC is controlling maybe like 18 or 19, somewhere in there. So I think there's some turmoil, there's some internal skirmishes within the APC that they do need to sort out before 2023, otherwise it might suffer a few more debilitating losses. I think the party needs to put its house in order. As we know, APC came about as a marriage of divergent interests. I think 3 major parties joined forces to form the APC. So it's a marriage of strange bedfellows, and as such, They have to learn how to how to marry their interests in such a way that they will be able to forge ahead together. The commonality of interests within the party is being torn apart by divergent forces.
All right, still speaking about the party, as of last week we saw a video that surfaced online where the national leader, that's Ize-Iyamu, but was saying, I don't know if you saw the video, or where he was telling people to boycott Obaseki. And do you think that as a result of that video, do you think that played against the party?
It very well could have. We don't know. I mean, but it could have played a role, because I know that culturally, historically, and ideologically, the Edo people have always been very strong-willed. They've always stood up to this notion of being told what to do by other people. They resist anything that looks like slavery. They've always been a strong-willed people. So remember that one of the slogans of the PDP campaign was Edo no be Lagos, and they played that over and over and over again. And what that basically was saying was that this notion of godfatherism, where one power that be comes and bestrides the entire political structure and controls everything, is not acceptable in Edo State. Now, having said that, I think that video may have antagonized them from the notion of the fact that somebody sitting in Lagos is telling us what to do in Edo State. I think that didn't sit well with them, and it may very well have had a part to play in the people's resolve not to do what that video was telling them to do.
All right, let's look at Oshomole. You know, before now, people, when that Obaseki was trying to become the governor, as at some years ago, they were, you know, he was campaigning for him, telling people to vote for him, and then he switched sides to Ize-Iyamu. This looks like a slap to the face to an extent, because apparently people were thinking that is Oshomole, whoever he gives you know, the authority to say, okay, you can become the governor, would definitely be. What's your take about this scenario that has played in, you know, the last couple of months?
The key thing is that Governor Obaseki essentially said no to godfatherism. The understanding is that Oshomole attempted to exert his influence over Obaseki, saying, I made you, I brought you to the people, so I should have a say in what you do. Well, Obaseki resisted that, and his feeling was, yes, you may have been instrumental to my ascension to office, but once you've got me there, we've acknowledged your role, we revere you as our elder statesman, but you should stay in your corner and let us play our own part. For you to have even put us forward means you have the confidence that we know what to do. So leave us alone and let us do our job. That became a problem over time. Now, I think that there was a bit of hypocrisy, in fact, quite a lot of hypocrisy. I don't know how Adams Oshomole could have stood before the people of Edo State to now repudiate Obaseki and embrace Ize-Iyamu after what he did 4 years ago, which was the exact opposite.
All right, let's look at the issues of insecurity and, you know, looking at the worsening security situation in the country. Is it safe to say that we need reinforcements of urgent new hands with fresh ideas to handle the nation's security issues?
Definitely we need to do something different. Just over the weekend we heard about massive kidnappings in Zamfara. The Southern Kaduna problem is still going on. I don't think at any time in the history of this country, other than the Civil War, that people have been killed willy-nilly as they're being killed in this day and age. There definitely is a big problem. I know insurgencies are very difficult to combat, but this has been going on too long, too rampant, and people are no longer feeling safe anywhere in the country at all. So we do need a restructuring of our security architecture. We need a rethink. We need new brains. We need new ideas. We need reinforcements. We need to put some money into equipment, armament, munitions. It has to be a holistic approach to restructuring it. You can't just take one aspect and work on that. We need to revamp the entire security architecture because this is out of hand.
Okay, so are you saying that we need the removal of the service chiefs?
I'm not an expert in defense strategy, so I wouldn't say that. I would leave that to the powers that be. The administration knows why it's keeping them there up till now. One thing we need to be aware is that on a national security level, there's much going on behind the scenes that we are not privy to. We as the public cannot be exposed to many national security issues so that it doesn't compromise those very security considerations. So we don't know enough. For the presidency to still be keeping them in place, there's something the presidency has some measure of confidence in their ability. But we as the public, once we start airing enough concerns and enough fear, I think a listening government should pay heed to that and try to make a change.
Okay, so how do you think that the effect of insecurity has played on our economic development as a country?
If people don't have the peace of mind in their own homes to know that they are safe and secure, their lives, their property are safe and secure, it doesn't allow us to function optimally. First of all, foreign investment is scared of coming here because they can't feel safe themselves, they can't assure the sanctity of their investments. Even us here locally, the places where insecurity is rife, for example, the farmers have run away from their farms because herdsmen and other bandits are coming to terrorize them. So guess what? Food production is reducing. So we've had to go and borrow grain from ECOWAS countries. We've had to now start thinking about reopening the border to allow exports to come in again. That's because there's a looming crisis of food shortage coming up because our farmers cannot produce. And why cannot they produce? Because insecurity has run them off their farms. So that's a major, major impact of insecurity on our economy and our well-being.
So how best do you think that we can handle this? Because we've looked at the area of the service chiefs, and then how then can we, identify this? We've identified problems. How then can we help ourselves in solving these insecurity issues?
Well, the president said the other day that insecurity and the killings is a cultural issue, not ethnic and religious. I think that's a wrong approach. I think that ethnicity and religion play a large part, and I think the government needs to begin to speak up about these things. I think we need to see prosecution and punishment of some of the perpetrators of this violence. If they are cowherders, if they are bandits, let them be caught, let them be paraded, let them be punished, let the populace know in no uncertain terms that this kind of behavior will not be tolerated.
All right, we're going on a very short break and we'll return back.
The man whom God used to fight God for terrorism. If for nothing, our chief that has nothing called God for terrorism again in the politics. The people have spoken and the people have said no. You cannot tie our faith in one man's hand. And that was what the people did yesterday. So I want to thank him that he volunteered himself to be used to fight for the interests of Edo people. My dear brother, and your deputy want to say let people, even though they've done you before, but probably they were thinking whether is it the person will know or not. So I want you to rise.
All right, welcome back. And if you're just still joining, it's still Today in the News. And I have my guest in the studio. We've been talking about Edo election as well as insecurity. Now we're looking at, federal government investing in seaports and railways. Okay, so the federal government said that 80% of the cargoes in Nigeria are mostly imported because the Nigerian economy is yet to generate enough production. Now, how effective would the investment in railway and seaport help our economy?
That kind of infrastructure development where you can move people and move goods mass will always be beneficial to any sort of economic system, because, for example, we're moving goods by trucks. You see what's happening at the Apapa ports. We're moving goods by trucks. The trucks are destroying the roads. It takes them longer to move the goods around the country. There's issues of traffic. There's issues of accidents. There's so many issues involved with road movement of goods. But when you have a situation where you can use rail, you can move a lot more, a lot quicker, and in one movement you can move a whole lot more in terms of tonnage by train than you would what 30 trucks would carry. One train can take at a time. The train moves on its own independent tracks, so it doesn't have any interference with human life on the road, cars, people. It moves on its own track. So what the train does is that it enables the dispersal of goods wider, faster, and more efficiently. How does it benefit the economy? It saves our roads, creates more jobs. It opens up corridors, because usually train tracks pass through rural areas. So where it is passing through, you find development occurring in those areas. Train stations will need support and logistics. So communities emerge around where there's train activity.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Dayo Akintobi, publisher at Ilupeju today. Thank you for joining us this very morning. Remember that you can equally like, share, and subscribe on all our social media platforms showing on your screen, as well as if you want to find out what's still happening in Edo State and what's going on right now in the world and also in Nigeria. You can equally go on our website www.vanguardnjr.com to find out more on our top stories. Till I come away next time, of course, my name remains Precious Chukudi. Thank you for watching. Have a fabulous day.
The man whom God used to fight God for fatalism. If for nothing, our chief that has nothing called God for fatalism again in Edo politics. The Edo people have spoken, and the people have said, look, you cannot tie our faith in one man's hand. And that was what Edo people did yesterday. So I want to thank him that he volunteered himself to be used to fight for the interests of Edo people. My dear brother, and your deputy want to say, let the people, even though they've done you before, but probably they were thinking whether is it the person we know or not. So I want you to rise.
Please go forward, come forward. with this